The stars had been quiet for a very long time. For 12,000 cycles, the Galactic Council had ruled the Orion Arm with absolute power. 6 ancient races sat upon the council, and they had long ago decided that the universe belonged to them. They had mapped every star. They had claimed every world worth claiming. They had written laws that all lesser species must follow. They were the first among equals. They were tall beings made of light and crystal, beautiful and cold. They believed themselves to be the most intelligent creatures in existence. They were a hive species, millions of bodies controlled by a handful of queens. They saw other races as nothing more than resources to be harvested. There were machine builders, cold and logical, who had replaced most of their organic bodies with metal and circuits. They were the oldest of all, ancient beyond measure, and they rarely spoke anymore. There were warriors, proud and violent, who believed strength was the only law that mattered, and there were merchants, caring only for profit and trade. Together, these 6 races had conquered or controlled every species they had ever encountered. Some they enslaved, some they simply destroyed, most they ignored, declaring them too primitive to matter. For 12,000 cycles, no one had challenged them. Then the humans arrived. The day everything changed began like any other day on Seraph 9, a beautiful world near the edge of space. The sky was purple, and 3 moons hung in the afternoon light. Administrators went about their work in floating towers of crystal. Ships came and went from the orbital stations above. No one noticed the strange readings at first. A fold space disturbance, the sensors said. Probably just a merchant convoy taking a shortcut through the system. Then the ship appeared. It was ugly by standards, blocky and gray, covered in strange symbols and antenna arrays. It was small, barely the size of a pleasure yacht, but it had emerged from fold space in a way that should have been impossible. The energy signature was wrong. The entry angle was inefficient. Everything about it was wrong. The ship broadcast a message on all frequencies. The message was in a language no one had ever heard before, but the translation systems worked quickly, and soon the words became clear. This is the United Nations ship Endeavor, representing the planet Earth and the human race. We come in peace. We seek contact with other intelligent species. Please respond. The administrators stared at their screens. A new species. That was impossible. The galaxy had been fully explored for thousands of cycles. There were no new species left to discover. But the ship was real, and so were the creatures inside it. Within hours, the news had spread across the galaxy. An unknown species had achieved faster-than-light travel. They called themselves humans. They came from a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star in a region of space that the Council had marked as empty and worthless long ago. The Council convened an emergency session on their ancient station at the center of the Orion Arm. High Arbiter Orion of the called the meeting to order. He was old even by standards, and he had seen many young species rise and fall. He expected this meeting to be brief. A new species has been discovered, he announced, his voice echoing through the great chamber. They are called humans. They have achieved fold space travel. We must decide what to do with them. The representative slammed his armored fist against his podium. Destroy them now, before they become a threat. Strike there and be done with it. That seems wasteful, said the representative, her many eyes gleaming with calculation. A new species means new markets, new resources, new opportunities for trade. The queen voice buzzed from 100 speakers. New bodies for the swarm, new workers for the hive. Let us harvest them. The representative said nothing. He simply calculated. A new variable had been introduced to his equations. He needed more data before he could reach a conclusion. The representative sat in silence, as she had for centuries. Some said they no longer cared about council business. Others said they were simply waiting for something, though no one knew what. High Arbiter Orion raised a crystalline hand for silence. Before we make any decisions, we should speak with these humans, learn what they want, assess their capabilities." He paused, "and remind them of their place in the galaxy." So an invitation was sent to the human ship. Their captain was asked to come before the council and speak for her species. The humans accepted. Captain had not expected to become the first human to address an alien government. She had trained as a pilot and an explorer, not a diplomat. But when the Endeavor had detected the alien station and received the invitation, she knew that everything her species had worked for came down to this moment. She was 43 years old, with gray streaks in her dark hair and lines around her eyes from years of squinting at star charts. She had a husband and 2 daughters back on Earth. She had not seen them in 3 years. As she prepared to leave the Endeavor and board the alien shuttle, she wondered if she would ever see them again. The council chamber was vast beyond anything had imagined. It could have held 100 football stadiums. The ceiling was so high that clouds formed near the top. 6 massive platforms floated in the air, each one holding the representatives of a council race. And at the center, on a small platform barely big enough to stand on, was a single spot marked for the human visitor. Stood on that platform and looked up at the beings who ruled the galaxy. She was afraid. Anyone would have been afraid, but she did not let her fear show. Her father had been a soldier, and he had taught her that courage was not the absence of fear. Courage was being afraid and doing what needed to be done anyway. "You are the human called," High Arbiter Oran said. His voice filled the chamber like music, beautiful and terrible at the same time. "You speak for your species." "I do," said. Her voice was small in that vast space, but it did not shake. "Then speak, tell us what you want." Had prepared a speech. She had worked on it for days, rewriting it again and again. But standing here, looking up at these ancient and powerful beings, she decided to throw the speech away. She would simply tell the truth. "We want peace," she said. "We want friendship. We want to learn from you and share what we have learned. We want to explore the stars together and discover the wonders of the universe. We want to trade goods and ideas. We want to build a future where all species can thrive." The representative laughed. It was an ugly sound, like metal scraping against metal. "Listen to this creature. It speaks of peace and friendship as if it were our equal." "We do not seek to be your equals," said quickly. "We know we are young. We know we have much to learn. We simply seek a chance to learn it." "How diplomatic," the representative said. "How charming. Tell me, human, what can your species offer us? What do you have that we could possibly want?" Thought about this question. It was a fair question. What did humanity have to offer races that had conquered the stars thousands of years ago? "We have ourselves," she said finally. "Our curiosity, our creativity, our determination. We have come so far in so little time. 300 years ago, my ancestors had not yet learned to fly. Now I stand before you in a ship that travels faster than light. Imagine what we might achieve with your guidance. Imagine what we might discover together." There was silence in the chamber. The council members looked at each other. Then High Arbiter Oran spoke again. His voice was no longer musical. It was cold. "You misunderstand your situation, human. You have not come here to negotiate. You have come here to receive our judgment." Felt her stomach drop. Judgment. "Your species has developed fold space technology without permission. This is a violation of council law. Your species has entered council space without authorization. This is also a violation. By our laws, we would be within our rights to destroy your and end your species entirely." The representative made that ugly laughing sound again. The buzzed with anticipation. "However," Oran continued, "we are not without mercy. We have decided to offer you a choice. Your species will be granted provisional species status. You will surrender your fold drive technology to the council. You will accept a permanent council presence on your. You will provide workers for council projects as needed. You will not expand beyond your home system without permission. In exchange, we will allow your species to continue existing." He said this as if he were being generous, as if allowing humans to live as slaves was a gift. Was silent for a long moment. She thought about her daughters. She thought about her husband. She thought about Earth, that small blue marble spinning in the darkness. She thought about all the humans who had dreamed of the stars, who had worked and sacrificed and died to make this moment possible. And she thought about what her father would have said. She looked up at High Arbiter Iran, and she smiled. "No," she said. The single word echoed through the vast chamber. The council members stirred. The representative growled. The leaned forward with sudden interest. "No," Iran repeated. His crystalline form flickered with what might have been confusion. "You refuse our generous offer." "I do," said. "With respect, High Arbiter, humanity did not travel to the stars to become anyone's servants. We came to be partners, equals, friends if you will have us, but not slaves, never slaves." "You do not seem to understand," the representative spoke for the first time. His voice was mechanical, without emotion. "You have no choice. Your species is small, weak, and young. We have we have conquered 1,000 worlds. What can you possibly do against us?" Thought about this question too, and again she told the truth. "I do not know," she said. "Perhaps nothing. Perhaps you will destroy us and humanity will become just another forgotten species in the long history of the galaxy. But I do know this, we will not go quietly. We will not submit. We will fight for our freedom with everything we have, for as long as we have breath in our bodies. That is what humans do. That is what we have always done." She paused and looked at each of the council representatives in turn. "You say you have conquered 1,000 worlds. I believe you. You say you have destroyed species I believe that too, but I wonder, High Arbiter, if any of those species ever told you no. I wonder if any of them ever looked at your vast fleets and your ancient power and said, 'We are not afraid of you.' Because that is what I am saying to you now. We are not afraid, and we will not surrender." The chamber was silent. No one had ever spoken to the council this way. No one had ever dared. High Arbiter Iran stared at the small human woman standing alone on her tiny platform. She was so small. Her species was so young. Their technology was primitive, their understanding of the universe laughably incomplete. By any reasonable calculation, they should have been begging for mercy. But she was not begging. She was not even asking. She was simply stating a fact, as calmly as if she were discussing the weather. "We will not surrender." "You are either very brave or very foolish," Iran said finally. "Perhaps both," replied. "My father used to say that wisdom means knowing when to bend, but courage means knowing when to stand. This is a moment for standing." "Then you have made your choice." The High Arbiter's voice was final. "Return to your ship. Return to your planet. Tell your people what has happened here. You have one solar cycle to reconsider. If you do not accept our terms by then, there will be consequences." Nodded, she had expected nothing less. "I will deliver your message, High Arbiter, and I will give you our answer now so there is no confusion. The answer will still be no. It will always be no." She turned and walked back to the shuttle that would take her to the Endeavor. She did not look back. She did not need to. Behind her, the council erupted into debate. The demanded immediate military action. The counseled patience and profit. The calculated how many human bodies they could harvest. The ran probability equations. The remained silent, but for the first time in centuries, the ancient representative seemed to be paying attention. Only High Arbiter Iran sat still, watching the small human woman disappear through the chamber doors. He had ruled the council for 3,000 cycles. He had seen species rise and fall. He had made decisions that affected billions of lives. He had always been certain of his own wisdom and power. But something about this human troubled him. Something about the way she had smiled when she refused him. Something about the calm certainty in her voice when she said they would not surrender. It was not defiance. He had seen defiance before. Defiant species screamed and threatened and made empty promises of revenge. This was something else. This was confidence, as if she knew something he did not, as if she could see a future he could not imagine. He shook off the feeling. It was absurd. The humans were nothing, a footnote in galactic history. They would submit or they would be destroyed. There was no other possible outcome. The Endeavour left Council space the next day. Captain sent a message to Earth describing everything that had happened. The message traveled through relay stations and fold space transmitters, and within a week, every human in the solar system knew what the Council had demanded. The response was immediate and unanimous. Governments that had been rivals for centuries came together. Resources that had been hoarded were freely shared. Scientists who had been working on separate projects combined their efforts. Factories that had been building consumer goods switched to military production. Training camps that had been half-empty filled with volunteers. Humanity had been told to submit or die. They chose a third option. They would prepare to fight. Returned to Earth a hero. She met with presidents and prime ministers. She gave speeches to crowds of millions. She told the story of her meeting with the Council again and again. But in private moments, when she was alone with her husband and her daughters, she was just a tired woman who had done her best and now feared what was coming. "Do you think we can win?" her husband asked one night. Looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Council was gathering its forces. Somewhere out there, ancient races were planning humanity's destruction. "I do not know," she said honestly, "but I know we have to try. I know that surrendering would be worse than dying. And I know that humans have surprised the universe before. Perhaps we will surprise it again." Her husband took her hand. Her daughters slept peacefully in the next room, unaware of the danger that was coming. "Then we fight," he said. "Then we fight," agreed. And across the planet, in every country and every city, humanity prepared for war. They did not know if they could win. They did not know if they would survive. But they knew with absolute certainty that they would never surrender. The galaxy had given them a choice: submit or die. Humanity had given its answer. Now they would see what the universe had to say about that. 3 years had passed since said no to the Galactic Council. The Council had responded exactly as expected. A battle fleet consisting of 200 warships had been stationed at the edge of the Sol system. Their orders were simple: nothing goes in, nothing comes out. The humans would be isolated, cut off from the rest of the galaxy until they learned their place. The commander, a veteran named, had been disappointed by this assignment. He had hoped for battle. He had hoped to crush these arrogant primitives and add their skulls to his collection. Instead, he was stuck on blockade duty, watching a tiny solar system and waiting for the humans to starve or submit. But the humans did neither. In the 3 years since the blockade began, humanity had changed. The governments of Earth had merged into a single United Nations authority. Petty conflicts that had lasted for centuries were set aside. Resources were pooled. Knowledge was shared. Every human being, from the oldest scientist to the youngest child, understood that they were in a fight for survival. And humans, it turned out, were very good at fighting for survival. The fold drive technology that had brought the Endeavour to Seraph 9 was improved and refined. New ships were built in secret shipyards hidden in the asteroid belt. Scientists reverse-engineered captured drones that had been sent to spy on Earth, learning the secrets of alien technology. Military planners studied every scrap of information about Council tactics and weapons. The blockade captured a few human vessels trying to sneak past their lines. They interrogated the crews and learned nothing useful. The humans either did not know about the secret preparations, or they refused to talk even under torture. Grew bored and frustrated. His reports to the Council became shorter and more irritated. "The humans are contained," he wrote again and again. "They cannot threaten us. This is a waste of my fleet and my time." The council agreed. The human problem would solve itself eventually. The blockade would remain in place, but it was no longer a priority. The commander was given permission to rotate his ships and reduce his forces. Half his fleet returned to space for other duties. This was exactly what humanity had been waiting for. Captain James stood on the bridge of the UNS Retribution and studied the tactical display. He was a tall man with dark skin and gray temples, and he had been a soldier for 30 years. He had fought in wars on Earth before the Council's arrival. He had seen what humans could do to each other. Now he would see what humans could do to those who threatened them all. "Status report," he said quietly. "All ships in position, Captain," his executive officer replied. "The fleet is ready." Nodded. The fleet. 47 human warships built in secret, armed with weapons that combined human ingenuity with stolen alien technology. They were outnumbered by the remaining blockade force, but numbers were not everything. "Remember our mission," said to his crew. "We are not here to fight the blockade. We are here to show the galaxy that humanity will not be caged. We break through, we establish contact with friendly species, and we return. No unnecessary risks, no unnecessary casualties." The plan was simple. The human fleet would fold space behind the blockade line, emerge in open space, and scatter in different directions before they could respond. Some ships would seek out the who had seemed interested in trade. Others would try to find the mysterious, who had remained silent during the council meeting. A few would simply explore, mapping new routes and new systems. It was a good plan. It should have worked. But the universe had other ideas. The human fleet emerged from fold space at exactly the planned coordinates. The blockade was behind them, caught completely off guard. The path to the stars was open. Then the distress signal came. It was faint, barely detectable among the background noise of space. A human signal, using human encryption, coming from a location that should have been empty. The colony ship Hope of Tomorrow had left Earth 6 months ago, carrying 40,000 civilians to a new home on a distant world. It had been one of the first ships to attempt to break the blockade, using an experimental route that avoided the main positions. It should have reached its destination weeks ago. No one had heard from it since. Now its emergency beacon was screaming into the void, and the signal was coming from the Cygnus system, deep in territory. Captain stared at the tactical display. There were slavers. Everyone knew that. They captured other species and used them as workers, as food, as breeding stock. The hive queens considered all non-life to be property. 40,000 people. Men, women, children. Families who had dreamed of a new life among the stars. "Captain," his executive officer said carefully, "our mission parameters are clear. We are not authorized to engage Council forces. If we attack it could mean war." "We are already at war," said quietly. "The Council simply has not admitted it yet." He looked around the bridge at his crew. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes, but they were also angry. Those were their people out there, their families, their friends. "New orders," said. "The fleet will proceed with the original mission. All ships except Retribution and her battle group will scatter as planned. We cannot risk the entire fleet on a rescue mission." "And us, Captain?" his weapons officer asked. Smiled grimly. "We are going to get our people back." The Retribution and 7 escort ships broke away from the main fleet and folded space toward the Cygnus system. The journey took 13 minutes. 13 minutes to prepare for battle. 13 minutes to pray, for those who believed in such things. 13 minutes to write final messages to loved ones who might never receive them. When they emerged from fold space, they found hell. The Hope of Tomorrow hung in space, broken and dark. Its engines were destroyed. Its hull was breached in a dozen places. Escape pods drifted nearby, empty and silent. And surrounding it, like predators around a carcass, were 40 hive ships. The vessels were organic, grown rather than built. They looked like massive insects, covered in chitin and filled with millions of drones. Each hive ship could hold 100,000 warriors. Each one was a weapon and a factory and a prison all at once. They had already begun their harvest. Shuttle pods were moving between the Hope of Tomorrow and the hive ships, carrying human prisoners to their new lives as slaves. How many survivors? Demanded. Sensors detect approximately 38,000 human life signs, Captain, scattered across 12 of the hive ships. 38,000. 2,000 already dead, but 38,000 still alive, still within reach. Open a channel to the fleet, ordered. His communications officer hesitated. Captain, they do not negotiate. They do not acknowledge lesser species as worthy of communication. Open the channel anyway. The channel opened, spoke clearly and calmly. Fleet, this is Captain James of the United Nations ship Retribution. You have attacked a civilian vessel and taken prisoners from a species under our protection. You will release all human captives immediately and withdraw from this system. You have 5 minutes to comply. Silence. Then a sound like a million insects buzzing filled the bridge. It was laughter. They were laughing. A voice emerged from the buzzing, translated by the ship's computers into words that could understand. Little human, little tiny human, you come to our space with your little ships and make demands. We have taken your kind before. We will take many more. Your flesh is soft and your minds are weak, but you make adequate workers. Go away, little human. Go away before we take you too. Looked at the tactical display. 40 hive ships, 8 human vessels. The math was not in his favor. But math was not everything. You have 4 minutes and 30 seconds, he said, and closed the channel. His executive officer stepped closer. Captain, I must formally note that we are vastly outnumbered. Our chances of survival are minimal. Our chances of successful rescue are essentially zero. Noted, said, now prepare for combat. Captain, with respect, this is suicide. We should withdraw and return with a larger force. Turned to face his executive officer. His eyes were calm, but there was something burning behind them, something that had not been there before. Lieutenant Commander, those are my people out there. 40,000 human beings, including children, being dragged into slavery. Every minute we wait, they suffer. Every hour we delay, they die. I will not leave them. I cannot leave them. If you wish to relieve me of command, you may attempt to do so. Otherwise, prepare for combat. The executive officer held his captain's gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded. All hands, battle stations, prepare for combat. The Retribution and her escorts moved forward toward the fleet. They were tiny compared to the hive ships, like mosquitoes approaching elephants. But mosquitoes could bite, and these mosquitoes had teeth. Time to compliance, asked. 3 minutes, Captain. Begin targeting solutions. All weapon systems armed and ready, boarding parties to shuttle bays. They did not take the humans seriously. Why would they? They had enslaved a dozen species they had never faced any real resistance. The little human ships were curiosities, nothing more. They did not prepare for battle. They did not raise their shields. They simply continued their harvest, confident that the humans would flee or die. This was their first mistake. When the timer reached 0, the Retribution opened fire. Human weapons technology was primitive by Council standards, but humans had a talent for destruction that the galaxy had not yet learned to appreciate. The Retribution's main gun was a magnetic accelerator that could launch a projectile at a significant fraction of the speed of light. The projectile was simple, a solid block of tungsten pointed at one end. No explosives, no fancy technology, just mass and velocity. The first shot struck a hive ship directly in its central thorax. The impact released more energy than a nuclear bomb. The hive ship cracked open like an egg, spilling drones and debris into space. They stopped laughing. Within seconds, the human ships had destroyed 4 hive ships and crippled 3 more. The fleet scrambled to respond, but they were slow and disorganized. They had never been attacked like this before. They did not know how to react. And then the boarding parties launched. Human Marines were different from any soldiers they had ever faced. They wore powered armor that enhanced their strength and speed. They carried weapons designed to kill efficiently and quickly. And they had something that they did not understand: absolute determination. The Marines breached the hive ships through the holes created by the Retribution's guns. They moved through the organic corridors, killing every drone that stood in their way. They found the prisoner holds and freed the captured humans. They escorted them back to the shuttle bays. They tried to fight back. They sent wave after wave of drones against the invaders. But humans, it turned out, were very good at killing. Something in their evolutionary history, something in their DNA, made them natural predators. They worked together seamlessly, covering each other, protecting each other, destroying anything that threatened them. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, 37 of the 40 hive ships were destroyed or disabled. The remaining 3 fled into fold space, their queens screaming with rage and fear. Human losses were minimal. 18 Marines had been killed, 2 escort ships had been damaged, but 38,000 civilians had been rescued. 38,000 people who would have spent the rest of their lives as slaves were now free. Captain stood on the bridge of the Retribution and watched the rescue shuttles return with their passengers. Families embraced each other. Children cried with relief. Men and women who had given up hope looked at their rescuers with disbelief and gratitude. "Captain," his communications officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from Council Space. Priority 1, all frequencies. It is from the Hive Queens." "Let me guess," said, "they are upset." "They are demanding justice, Captain. They claim we have committed an act of war against a Council species. They are calling for our arrest and execution." Nodded slowly. He had expected this. They would never admit that they had been defeated by a lesser species. They would twist the narrative, make themselves the victims. "And what does the Council say?" "The Council has issued a formal decree, Captain. You and the 37 surviving Marines from the boarding parties are to be surrendered to Council custody within 10 days. Failure to comply will be considered an act of war by the human species against the Galactic Council." An act of war, as if attacking a civilian colony ship and enslaving 40,000 people was not already an act of war, as if the blockade had been an act of friendship. "Send a message to Earth," said. "Tell them what happened here, tell them what the Council demands, and tell them," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "tell them I am proud to have served humanity. Whatever happens next, I regret nothing." The message was sent. The fleet limped home, carrying its rescued passengers and its wounded ships. Along the way, they passed the blockade, which had been reinforced and was now on high alert. But they did not attack. They watched the human ships pass and did nothing. Perhaps they were waiting for orders. Perhaps they were uncertain. Or perhaps, for the first time, they were afraid. Earth received the Council's demands. The governments debated. The people protested. The rescued civilians told their stories to anyone who would listen. Images of children reunited with their families spread across the planet. And then Earth gave its response. It was broadcast on all frequencies, in all languages, to every corner of the solar system and beyond. It was simple and clear. "Come and take them." 3 words, a declaration of defiance, a challenge to the most powerful forces in the galaxy. The Council had demanded surrender. Humanity had responded with a phrase from their ancient history, from a warrior named who had faced an empire with nothing but courage and 300 soldiers. "Come and take them." The galaxy heard the message and did not understand. No species had ever the Council so openly. No species had ever been so foolish. But Captain James understood. He stood on the bridge of the Retribution, looking at the stars, and he smiled. "What are you thinking, Captain?" his executive officer asked. "I am thinking," said slowly, "that the galaxy is about to learn what it means to fight humans. I am thinking that the Council has made a mistake they do not yet realize. And I am thinking that whatever happens next, it will be legendary." "You believe we can win?" Shook his head. "I do not know if we can win, but I know we will fight. And I know that win or lose, the galaxy will never forget what happened here. They will never forget the day that 40,000 humans were saved because their people refused to abandon them. They will never forget the Cygnus station." He turned to face his crew. They were battered and tired, but they stood tall. They had faced the monster and survived. They had done the impossible. "The Council thinks we are weak," said. "They think we are afraid. They think we will break. Let them think that. Let them underestimate us. Because when they come for us, and they will come, they will learn the truth. They will learn that humans do not abandon their own. They will learn that humans do not surrender. And they will learn that the cost of hurting us is higher than they can imagine." Somewhere in the depths of space, the queens were screaming to the Council for vengeance. Somewhere, they were sharpening their claws and preparing their fleets. Somewhere, they were calculating the most efficient way to exterminate an entire species. But on the Retribution, there was only quiet determination. The crew went about their duties, preparing for the storm that was coming. Humanity had sent its message to the galaxy. Now they would wait for the galaxy's reply. The Galactic Council had never assembled a fleet of this size. 2,000 warships gathered at the edge of human space. Ships from all 6 elder races united for the first time in centuries. Dreadnoughts bristling with weapons. Calculated carriers filled with automated fighters. Bioships pulsing with angry energy. Crystal cruisers gleaming in the starlight. Armed merchant vessels, slower but deadly. Even they had sent a single ancient ship, though no one knew what purpose it served. High Arbiter Oran stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Light, and surveyed his armada with satisfaction. This was the largest military force ever assembled in the history of the galaxy. It was enough to conquer 100 worlds, to crush a dozen species, to end 1,000 rebellions. It would certainly be enough to destroy one small planet. "Status report," he commanded. "All ships in position, High Arbiter," his tactical officer replied. "The human system is directly ahead. Their blockade response fleet has been detected at the outer boundary of their system, at a location they call the Heliopause." Oran nodded. The humans had not surprised him. They were predictable creatures, after all. They would make their stand at the edge of their territory, trying to keep the fight as far from their precious Earth as possible. "How many ships do they have?" 47, High Arbiter. A ripple of amusement passed through the command deck. 47 ships against 2,000. The humans were either very brave or very stupid, probably both. "Broadcast a message to their fleet," Oran ordered. "Give them one final chance to surrender. Tell them that if they hand over the criminals and his marines, we will show mercy to the rest of their species." The message was sent. The Council fleet waited. The reply came within minutes. It was not words. It was not surrender. It was a single human song broadcast on all frequencies. The Council's translation system struggled with the meaning, but the intent was clear. It was a war song, a song of defiance. Oran felt a flicker of annoyance. These creatures simply would not learn. "All ships," he commanded, "advance and destroy." Admiral Yue stood on the bridge of the UNS Thermopylae and watched the Council fleet approach. She was 63 years old, the daughter of farmers who had grown rice in fields that were now underwater. She had risen through the military ranks by being smarter and more determined than anyone around her. Now she commanded humanity's entire battle fleet. 47 ships against 2,000. The math was simple. The math said they would lose. The math said they would all die. But Admiral had never been good at accepting what math told her she could not do. "All ships," she said calmly. "This is Admiral. Today we face the greatest challenge our species has ever known. Today we stand between everything we love and those who would destroy it. I will not lie to you and tell you we will all survive. Many of us will not see tomorrow. But I will tell you this. Every minute we hold them, every ship we destroy, every blow we strike, gives our families time to prepare, time to escape, time to survive. We are not fighting to win. We are fighting to buy time with our lives. And that is a trade I am willing to make." She paused, looking at the screens showing every ship in her fleet, every captain and crew member who had volunteered for this mission. "The galaxy thinks we are weak. The galaxy thinks we will break. Let us show them what humans are made of. Let us show them that we do not fear death. We fear only failing those who depend on us. Today we stand. Today we fight. Today we remind the universe why our ancestors learned to light fires in the darkness." She took a deep breath. "All ships engage at will. Make them pay for every inch of space. And if you die, make sure you take as many of them with you as you can." The Battle of the Heliopause began. The Council expected a traditional battle. Formation against formation, fleet against fleet, the larger force grinding down the smaller through simple attrition. This was how space battles had been fought for 10,000 years. This was how wars were won. But humans did not fight traditional battles. The first surprise came when the human ships scattered. Instead of holding formation, they broke apart and fled in all directions. The Council fleet pursued, trying to pin them down, but the human vessels were faster than expected. They wove between asteroids, used gravity wells to slingshot around planets, and refused to stand and fight. "They are running," the commander growled. "Cowards." But they were not running, they were leading. Deep in the asteroid belt, human engineers had been working for months. They had moved asteroids, attached engines to them, placed explosive charges throughout their rocky masses. They were not weapons by any traditional definition. They were simply rocks, very large, very heavy rocks that could be pushed to incredible speeds. The first asteroid struck a dreadnought at nearly 1% of the speed of light. The impact was apocalyptic. The dreadnought did not explode. It simply ceased to exist, converted into a cloud of plasma and debris that spread outward in all directions. 3 nearby ships were destroyed by the shrapnel alone. "What happened?" Oran demanded. "What weapon was that?" No one could answer him. It was not a weapon. It was a rock. The humans were throwing rocks at them. More asteroids came. They were hard to detect, hard to track, hard to stop. The Council fleet tried to shoot them down, but there were too many, coming from too many directions. Ships scattered in panic, breaking formation to avoid the deadly projectiles. And that was when the human ships attacked. They came out of nowhere, appearing in the midst of the scattered Council fleet like wolves among sheep. Their weapons were primitive, their ships were small, but they knew exactly where to strike. They targeted command ships and supply vessels. They disabled engines and left ships drifting helplessly. They appeared, struck, and vanished before the Council forces could respond. The Battle of the Heliopause was not a battle, it was chaos. Admiral moved through the chaos like a conductor leading an orchestra of destruction. She knew she could not win through strength. She had to win through confusion, through speed, through sheer unpredictability. "Thermopylae to all ships," she ordered. "Execute Pattern Thunder. I repeat, Pattern Thunder." Pattern Thunder was not in any military textbook. It was something the human admirals had invented specifically for this battle. It involved doing the one thing no sane military commander would ever do, deliberately overloading full-drive engines to create temporary tears in space-time. The effect was devastating. Ships that tried to pursue the humans found their navigation systems scrambled, their sensors blinded, their weapons misfiring. The tears only lasted for seconds, but seconds were enough. In those moments of confusion, human ships struck again and again. Hours passed. The Council fleet, which had expected a quick victory, found itself bleeding from 1,000 cuts. Ships were destroyed or disabled. Commanders were killed. Communication systems were jammed. The neat formations that had looked so impressive became tangled masses of confusion. "High Arbiter," the tactical officer said, his voice strained, "we have lost 800 ships. The humans have lost 31. Oran could not believe what he was hearing. 800 ships. 800 ships lost to a species that had only achieved space travel a few centuries ago. It was impossible. It was absurd. How, he demanded, how are they doing this? They are not fighting like a military force, High Arbiter. They are fighting like, the tactical officer struggled to find the right word. They are fighting like predators, ambush tactics, hit and run. They strike at weak points and retreat before we can respond. Our forces are larger and stronger, but we cannot bring that strength to bear. They will not let us. Then force them to stand and fight, corner them, trap them. We have tried, High Arbiter. Every time we trap them, they sacrifice a ship to allow the others to escape. One human vessel flew directly into the flagship's engine core, destroying itself and the flagship simultaneously. Another overloaded its reactor at point-blank range, destroying itself and 3 of our cruisers. Sacrifice. The word hung in the air. The Council species did not understand sacrifice. They fought to win, to survive, to conquer. They did not throw away their lives for abstract concepts like honor or duty. But humans did. The UNS Defiance was one of the smaller ships in the human fleet, a destroyer that had already taken heavy damage. Her captain, a young woman named Sarah Martinez, knew her ship was dying. Engines failing, weapons depleted, hull breached in multiple locations. She also knew that the command carrier was directly ahead, its shields down as it tried to coordinate the scattered Council fleet. Captain Martinez made her decision in an instant. "All hands," she announced, "this is the captain. Abandon ship. Repeat, all hands abandon ship. Get to the escape pods, that is an order." Her crew hesitated. They knew what she was going to do. "Go," she said quietly. "Tell my family I love them. Tell them I did my duty." They went. Escape pods launched from the dying Defiance, carrying her crew to safety. Captain Martinez stayed at the helm alone. She aimed her ship at the command carrier. She pushed the engines to maximum. The Defiance was traveling at nearly 1/10 the speed of light when it struck the carrier. The impact released more energy than a nuclear arsenal. The carrier, one of the largest ships in the Council fleet, was obliterated in an instant. Everyone aboard died. The admiral, his entire staff, thousands of warriors, gone in a flash of light. And Captain Sarah Martinez, age 29, became the first human to destroy a Council flagship. She would not be the last. 6 hours after the battle began, High Arbiter Oran was forced to acknowledge reality. His glorious armada was in shambles. Almost half his ships were destroyed or disabled. His remaining forces were scattered and demoralized. The human fleet, impossibly, was still fighting. "High Arbiter," his advisor said carefully, "we should consider withdrawal, regroup and return with a fresh strategy." Oran's crystalline form flickered with rage. Withdrawal, retreat, defeat. These were words that had never been spoken to a High Arbiter of the. These were words that should not exist. "No," he said, "we will finish this. Send in the reserves, all of them, overwhelm them with numbers." But before the order could be executed, something happened that no one expected. Admiral's flagship, the Thermopylae, appeared directly in front of the Eternal Light, point-blank range. So close that Oran could see the damage on the human vessel's hull, the scorch marks from weapon impacts, the patches covering breaches. The Thermopylae was dying, but it was not attacking. "Human vessel," Oran demanded, "why are you here? Have you come to surrender?" A communication channel opened. Admiral's face appeared on screen. She looked exhausted, covered in dust and blood, but her eyes were clear and calm. "No, High Arbiter," she said. "I have not come to surrender. I have come to offer you a choice. You are in no position to offer anything. Perhaps, but you should hear me out. Look at your fleet, High Arbiter. Look at what we have done. You came here with 2,000 ships, and we have destroyed almost half of them. You expected an easy victory, and instead you have found a battle that will haunt your nightmares for generations." She paused, letting the words sink in. "We are going to lose this battle. We both know that. You have more ships than we do, and eventually you will overwhelm us. But how many more ships will you lose before that happens? How many more commanders will die? How many more of your warriors will never see their homes again?" Oran said nothing, but he was listening. "I am offering you a chance to end this now," Admiral continued. "Withdraw your fleet, leave human space. In exchange, we will release all Council prisoners we have captured during this battle. We will return them safely to their people." "You expect me to retreat, to admit defeat to a species of primitives?" "I expect you to be wise," Admiral said. "I expect you to look at the cost of this battle and ask yourself if it is worth paying. You wanted to destroy us to make an example, but what kind of example does this battle make? It shows the galaxy that the Council is not invincible. It shows them that a small species with courage can stand against the mighty. Is that the example you want to set?" The High Arbiter considered her words. He looked at the tactical displays showing his scattered and bloodied fleet. He thought about the reports that would be sent back to the Council, the questions that would be asked, the explanations that would be demanded. And then the human admiral said something that no one had ever said to him before. "I am not asking you to be merciful, High Arbiter. I am asking you to be smart. The humans have a saying, 'Choose your battles wisely.' This is a battle you can win, but the cost of winning will be greater than you can imagine. Is it worth it? Is our destruction worth the destruction of half your fleet? Is your pride worth the lives of your soldiers?" Pride, the word stung, but beneath the pride, Oran felt something he had not felt in centuries: uncertainty. These humans fought like no species he had ever encountered. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation. They turned their own ships into weapons. They used rocks as missiles. They broke every rule of civilized warfare. And they refused to give up. "Your terms are unacceptable," Oran said finally. "But I will offer counterterms. Surrender your fleet. Surrender Captain and his Marines. In exchange, I will spare you will accept provisional species status as we originally demanded. You will live as servants, but you will live." Admiral smiled sadly. "I cannot accept those terms, High Arbiter, and I do not think you truly expected me to." "Then this conversation is over." "Not quite," Admiral leaned forward. "There is one more thing you should know. During this battle, my ships have rescued 17,000 survivors from your destroyed vessels. Warriors, officers, drones, engineers. 17,000 of your people who would have died in the cold of space." Oran was stunned. "You saved our people." "We saved sentient beings who were helpless and dying. That is what humans do. We do not let people die when we can save them, even our enemies." "But why? We came to destroy you." "Yes, you did. And if you continue, you may succeed. But we will not become like you to defeat you. We will not abandon our principles. We will not stop being human." Admiral reached off-screen and retrieved something. She held it up for Oran to see. It was a small crystal glowing with inner light, a life crystal carried by all members of Oran's species. "One of your people gave this to me," Admiral said. "A young officer whose escape pod was damaged. Our medic saved his life. When he woke up on a human ship surrounded by the enemy, he expected to be tortured or killed. Instead, he was given water, food, and medical care. He asked me why, and I told him, because that is who we are." She set the crystal down carefully. "Think about that, High Arbiter. Think about what kind of species we are. Think about whether we are truly your enemy or whether we could have been your friend, and then decide what you want to do. The communication channel closed. The Thermopylae drifted away, too damaged to continue fighting but not destroyed. High Arbiter Oran stood alone on his command deck, surrounded by the wreckage of his certainties. Everything he had believed about humans, everything the Council had taught him about lesser species, seemed suddenly inadequate. They had saved his people. In the middle of a battle for survival, they had rescued enemy soldiers and treated them with kindness. They had shown mercy to those who had shown them none. It was inexplicable, it was irrational, it was noble. For the first time in his long life, Oran questioned whether the Council's way was the only way. The battle ended not with victory or defeat, but with withdrawal. The remaining Council ships retreated from human space, carrying their wounded and their dead. They took with them the 17,000 survivors that the humans had rescued. High Arbiter Oran sent a final message to Earth before he left. It was short and simple. We will meet again, humans. I do not know what will happen when we do, but I will remember this day. I will remember what you showed me. Admiral received the message and smiled tiredly. What does it mean? Her executive officer asked. It means the universe is watching, she said. It means the Council is not as unified as it appears. And it means that what we did here today, the way we fought and the mercy we showed, will have consequences that we cannot predict. Good consequences or bad? Admiral shook her head. I do not know, but I know we stayed true to ourselves. We fought like humans and we showed compassion like humans. Whatever comes next, we can face it with clear consciences. She looked out at the stars, at the debris field that had once been a battlefield, at the distant lights of Earth shining in the darkness. The galaxy thinks it knows what we are, she said quietly. They think we are primitives, barbarians, animals, but today they learned something new. Today they learned that we are strong enough to fight the entire galaxy and survive, and they learned that we are kind enough to save our enemies from death. She turned to face her crew. That combination of strength and kindness, that is what makes us human. That is what the Council fears, even if they do not know it yet, because a species that fights with everything it has but still shows mercy. That is a species that cannot be conquered. That is a species that will change the galaxy. The Thermopylae limped home, victorious and broken. The crew celebrated and mourned in equal measure. And across the solar system, humanity breathed a sigh of relief. They had survived the unsurvivable. They had faced the might of the galaxy and remained standing. But everyone knew that this was not the end. The Council would return. The war was not over. And the next time, the galaxy would bring everything it had. Humanity began preparing for that day. The Battle of the Heliopause had changed everything. Across the galaxy, species that had lived under Council rule for thousands of years watched the recordings in stunned silence. A young species with primitive technology had stood against the mightiest fleet ever assembled and had not been destroyed. They had fought like demons and shown mercy like saints. They had proven that the Council was not invincible. The ripples spread quickly. The officially from the Council alliance, declaring neutrality in any future conflict with humans. They saw profit in human trade and they had always preferred money to war. The ancient and mysterious simply vanished from public life entirely. Their last message to the Council was cryptic. We remember what sleeps in young species. We will wait and watch. But the Endtho were not impressed. They were enraged. They had lost thousands of warriors at the Heliopause. Their greatest commanders had died. Their pride had been humiliated. They demanded vengeance with a fury that bordered on madness. They were more calculating but equally determined. Their logical systems had analyzed the battle of the Heliopause and reached a disturbing conclusion. If humans were allowed to continue developing, they would become unstoppable within a few generations. The only logical solution was extinction. In secret meetings hidden from even the other council races, they made a plan. They would not send another fleet. Fleets could be defeated. They would send something else, something that could not be stopped. They would send the Extinction Lance. The Extinction Lance was a weapon from ancient times. It had been built during the Machine Wars when they had fought among themselves for dominance. It was a planet killer, capable of destroying an entire world in a single shot. It had been used only once before, against a faction that had refused to surrender. That faction had been completely erased from existence, not just defeated, erased. Every record, every memory, every trace of them had been eliminated. They were now known only as the Forgotten, a warning to all who the collective. The lance had been hidden away considered too terrible to use, but the had decided that humans warranted its resurrection. For months, the weapon was secretly transported through fold space, avoiding all detection. Engineers worked in hidden shipyards, repairing systems that had not been activated for 10,000 years. Warriors guarded the operation with paranoid intensity. On Earth, life continued. Humanity rebuilt its fleet. Scientists worked on new technologies. Children went to school. Families gathered for meals. People fell in love, got married, had babies. Life went on as it always does. Admiral Yue, now considered the greatest hero in human history, had been promoted to Supreme Commander of Human Defense. She spent her days planning for the Council's next attack, analyzing every possible scenario, preparing for every contingency. She never considered the possibility that the Council would simply destroy Earth entirely. It seemed too extreme even for them. Surely they would want to conquer humanity, not annihilate them. Surely they would want the resources, the technology, the slaves. She was wrong. The day Earth died was a Tuesday. It was 3:47 p.m. in New York City. The stock market was open. Traffic clogged the streets. Millions of people went about their daily lives, thinking about work and dinner and whether it would rain tomorrow. In Tokyo, it was Wednesday morning. Salary workers crowded the trains, clutching coffee and checking their phones. Children walked to school in neat uniforms. An old woman fed pigeons in a park. In London, the sun was setting. Pubgoers finished their pints. Tourists took photographs of Big Ben. A street musician played guitar for spare change. 12 billion people lived on Earth. They had hopes and dreams and fears. They had families who loved them. They had futures that seemed full of possibility. At 3:47 p.m. New York time, the Extinction Lance fired. The weapon had been positioned at the edge of the solar system, hidden among the asteroids. Its targeting systems had been aimed at Earth for weeks, waiting for the order. When the order came, it took less than a second for the lance to power up and release its payload. The beam traveled at nearly the speed of light. There was no warning, no alarm, no time to react. One moment Earth existed, the next moment it did not. The planet simply came apart. The beam struck the core and converted it into pure energy. The energy expanded outward at incredible speed, vaporizing rock and ocean and atmosphere. Within 17 seconds, everything that had been Earth was reduced to a cloud of expanding debris. 12 billion people died. 12 billion souls extinguished in the time it took to take a breath. The debris cloud expanded through the solar system, carrying with it the ashes of everything humanity had built on it. The Sistine Chapel, the Great Wall of China, the pyramids, the libraries, the hospitals, the schools, the homes, the memories. All gone. Admiral Yue was on Mars when it happened. She was in a meeting with her generals, discussing supply lines and ship production. Her aide burst into the room, face white with shock. "Admiral," he whispered, Earth is gone." She did not understand at first. The words did not make sense. Earth could not be gone. Earth was humanity's home, the cradle of civilization, the center of everything. Then she looked at the tactical display. She saw the debris cloud where Earth had been. She saw the impossible reality. And something inside Admiral Yue changed forever. She did not scream. She did not cry. She did not collapse. She simply stood very still, looking at the display as the deaths of 12 billion people registered in her mind. Her husband had been on Earth. Her children, her parents, her friends, everyone she had ever loved. Gone. For a long moment the room was silent. No one knew what to say. What could anyone say? Then Admiral spoke. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. Status of human survivors. Her aide checked the reports with shaking hands. Approximately 3 billion humans remain, Admiral, scattered across colony worlds, space stations, and ships. The Council is broadcasting a message. They are claiming victory. They say the human threat has been eliminated. I see, Admiral nodded slowly. Have our surviving shipyards received any damage? No, Admiral. The attack was focused solely on Earth. Good. Recall all military personnel immediately. All construction projects are now priority 1. Cancel all leave. Cancel all personal time. We have work to do. Her generals stared at her in confusion. Admiral, one of them said carefully, with respect, we have lost most of our population. The Council believes we are finished. Perhaps we should consider negotiation. Admiral turned to face the general. Her eyes were empty of all emotion, but behind that emptiness was something terrifying, something that had not been there before. General, she said quietly, 12 billion people just died. My family just died. The Council did not negotiate. The Council did not warn us. The Council simply murdered our world and everyone on it. And you suggest that we negotiate. The general said nothing. There will be no negotiation, Admiral continued. There will be no surrender. There will be no peace. The Council has taught us something today, something we should have understood long ago. They do not want us to submit. They want us to die, all of us, every human being in existence. She looked around the room at her remaining commanders. They were the survivors now. 3 billion humans out of 15 billion, the remnants of a species. Very well, she said. If they want us dead, we will make them pay for every human life 1,000 times over. We will burn their worlds as they burned ours. We will destroy their fleets as they destroyed our home. And when we are finished, the galaxy will remember the price of attacking humanity. She took a deep breath. Activate Operation Phoenix. Contact all hidden shipyards. Tell them the time has come. We are building the burning fleet. For 6 months, the galaxy heard nothing from humanity. The Council declared victory. The Enda celebrated their success. The other Council races, uneasy about what had been done, said nothing. The human threat was over. The galaxy could return to normal. But in the shadows of the solar system, in asteroid bases and hidden stations, humanity was not dead. Humanity was working. The shipyards that had been built in secret before the war now operated at maximum capacity. Engineers who had lost their families worked without sleep, driven by grief and rage. Scientists developed new weapons, new drives, new technologies. Volunteers signed up for military service in numbers that overwhelmed the recruiting stations. And Admiral Yue, now known as the Widow of Earth, oversaw everything with cold efficiency. She had not slept more than a few hours since the destruction of Earth. She had not mourned. She had not cried. There was no time for such things. The dead would be avenged, and then she could grieve. Until then, she was a machine of war, nothing more. The burning fleet took shape in the darkness. 300 warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humanity had built before. They were not designed for defense. They were not designed for escort duty. They were designed for one purpose: destruction. Every ship was named after a city that had died on Earth. The UNS New York, the UNS Tokyo, the UNS London, the UNS Cairo, the UNS Sydney. 300 names, 300 memorials, 300 instruments of vengeance. When the fleet was complete, Admiral gathered her commanders for a final briefing. "The galaxy believes we are dead," she said. "They believe the extinction lance finished us. They have become complacent, relaxed, convinced that the human threat is over." She pulled up a tactical display showing the positions of Council forces throughout the galaxy. "In 3 hours, the burning fleet will fold space to 12 different locations simultaneously. We will strike at the heart of the Central Command and 10 other major Council installations. There will be no warning. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy." Her commanders nodded grimly. They had all lost people on Earth. They all understood. "Our objective is simple," Admiral continued. "We will destroy the military capability completely. We will eliminate the command structure and their ability to rebuild the extinction lance. And we will send a message to the rest of the galaxy. The price of attacking humanity is higher than anyone can afford to pay." She paused, looking at each commander in turn. "I will not lie to you. Many of us will not survive this campaign. The Council still has more ships than we do, more resources, more territory. But we have something they do not have. We have rage. We have grief. We have 3 billion souls who will never forgive what was done to our world. That is a power that cannot be calculated. That is a weapon that cannot be defended against." She straightened, her eyes hard as diamonds. "For Earth, for our families, for the 12 billion who died in 17 seconds, today we begin the burning. Today the galaxy learns what it means to make an enemy of humanity." The burning fleet emerged from fold space without warning. A holiday was being celebrated. Warriors were gathered in the great arena, watching combat games. Families were feasting on the flesh of conquered species. Children were learning the ancient traditions of their people. When the human ships appeared in the sky, no one understood what they were seeing. The humans were extinct. Everyone knew that. The Council had declared victory. The first missiles hit the military installations before anyone could react. The human weapons were not subtle. They were brutal, overwhelming, designed to cause maximum destruction in minimum time. Missiles, kinetic bombardment, energy weapons, everything humanity had developed was unleashed at once. The military command center was destroyed in the first minute. The orbital defense platforms were eliminated in the second minute. By the third minute, human ships were descending through the atmosphere, striking at ground targets with precision that spoke of months of planning. In 4 hours, the military was crippled. Their fleet was scattered or destroyed. Their command structure was eliminated. Their ability to wage war had been reduced to nothing. But Admiral was not finished. She broadcast a message to every citizen. "People of I am Admiral UA of the human burning fleet. 6 months ago, your leaders helped destroy our and murder 12 billion of our people. Today, we have destroyed your military capability. Your warriors are dead or fleeing. Your fleets are burning. Your leaders are gone." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was ice. "We could destroy your as you destroyed ours. We have the capability. We have the motivation. Every human being in existence would cheer if we turned your planet into ash." Across, civilians waited in terror for the final blow. "But we will not do that," Admiral continued. "We are not you. We do not murder civilians to prove our power. Your children are innocent. Your families did not choose this war. So you will live not because you deserve mercy, but because we refuse to become the monsters you tried to make us." The message ended. The burning fleet departed. They were left alive, but their empire was broken. Their military was gone. Their leaders were dead. They would not threaten anyone for generations to come. The story was different. There were machine intelligences, their organic bodies enhanced with technology until they were more robot than flesh. They did not have civilians in the same way as other species. Every was part of the collective. Every contributed to the war effort, and every had participated in the decision to use the extinction lance. Admiral had known this, she had planned for it. The burning fleet did not strike with missiles or kinetic weapons. Instead, they deployed something far more insidious, a virus. Human hackers had spent months studying captured technology. They had learned how the collective worked, how information flowed between units, how decisions were made, and they had designed a virus that exploited every weakness they found. When the virus was uploaded to the network, chaos erupted. Defense systems turned on each other. Factory robots began dismantling themselves. Communications collapsed into static. The carefully organized collective became a screaming mass of conflicting signals and contradictory commands. Within hours, the industrial base was destroyed, not by bombs but by their own technology. Their factories, their shipyards, their weapons platforms, all of it turned against itself. The leaders tried to isolate themselves from the infected systems, but it was too late. The virus was everywhere, and it carried a message, repeating endlessly in every mind. You calculated that extinction was the only solution. You were wrong. You calculated that humans would not survive. You were wrong. You calculated that you could escape consequences. You were wrong. We are coming for you. We will never stop. We will never forget. And your calculations will never save you. The collective, for the first time in its existence, felt fear. The burning fleet struck 12 targets in a single day. Major council installations, military bases, weapons factories, command centers. Everywhere the message was the same. Humanity was not dead, and humanity would not forgive. When it was over, Admiral gathered reports from all her commanders. The campaign had been almost perfectly successful. The N were broken. The other council races were in panic. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted forever. She sat alone in her quarters on the flagship, reading the casualty reports. Her fleet had lost 37 ships and 12,000 personnel. Acceptable losses, her tactical officer had said. Acceptable. She thought about the 12 billion who had died on Earth. She thought about her husband and her children. She thought about what she had become, a machine of vengeance, a weapon in human form. Was this what humanity was meant to be? Destroyers, avengers, monsters who burned worlds and shattered civilizations? She did not have an answer. She only knew that the dead deserved justice, and she had delivered it. She activated the communication system and broadcast a final message to the galaxy. This is Admiral Yue, Widow of Earth, commander of the Burning Fleet. Today, we have shown the galaxy what humanity truly is. We are not a species that surrenders. We are not a species that forgets. We are a species that fights to the end, whatever the cost. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was heavy with exhaustion. You killed our world. You murdered our children. You thought extinction would silence us. Instead, you taught us what we truly are. We are humanity, and we are just getting started. The message ended. The burning fleet disappeared into fold space, leaving behind a galaxy in flames. The war was far from over, but for the first time since Earth's destruction, humanity had hope. And the Council had fear. The war lasted 11 years. 11 years of battles and sieges and desperate last stands. 11 years of death and destruction on a scale the galaxy had never seen before. 11 years during which humanity transformed from a wounded species seeking revenge into something new, something that even they did not fully understand. Admiral Yue commanded the Burning Fleet for the first 3 years of the war. She led humanity's forces from victory to victory, dismantling the Council's power one piece at a time. She watched her species grow stronger, more capable, more deadly with each passing month. And she watched herself grow older and more tired. The rage that had driven her after Earth's destruction never faded, but it changed. It became something colder, harder, more patient. She no longer dreamed of annihilation. She dreamed of endings. She dreamed of a galaxy where no more humans would die for the crimes of ancient empires. In the 4th year of the war, she handed command to her successor, a young admiral named David Park who had lost his entire extended family on Earth. He was brilliant, ruthless, and driven by the same fire that had once burned in her. "Do not become what they made us," she told him before she retired. "Do not let the war consume who we are. When it is over, we must still be human. We must still be capable of building peace." Admiral Park nodded, though she was not sure he understood. He was young. He still thought war was about winning. She would learn, eventually, that war was really about surviving with your soul intact. The war ground on. Though their military, broken by the initial attacks, became guerrilla fighters. They struck at human supply lines, assassinated human commanders, and made every occupied system a battlefield. But without their centralized command structure, without their fleets and their resources, they were fighting a losing war. In the 7th year of the war, the last warlord was captured and brought before a human tribunal. He expected to be executed. He expected torture, humiliation, death. Instead, he was offered a choice: renounce violence and help his people transition to peace, or spend the rest of his life in a prison on a distant moon. He chose peace. He was the first to do so, but he was not the last. They were a different challenge. Their collective intelligence made them difficult to defeat conventionally. Every unit was connected to every other unit, sharing information and resources across vast distances. Destroying one installation simply made the others stronger and more efficient. But the virus that humanity had unleashed during the initial attacks had done more damage than anyone realized. The collective was fractured, broken into dozens of competing factions that fought each other almost as much as they fought humanity. In the 9th year of the war, the largest remaining faction approached humanity with an offer: peace in exchange for a cure for the virus that was slowly destroying their network. Admiral Park was initially opposed. "Let them suffer," he argued. "Let them experience what we experienced when they destroyed Earth." But Admiral, still alive and still influential despite her retirement, convinced him otherwise. "If we let them die, we become them," she said. "We become the species that uses extinction as a weapon. We become the very thing we fought against." The treaty was signed. Human doctors and engineers worked with scientists to repair the damage. The faction agreed to complete disarmament and submitted to human oversight of their remaining installations. It was not forgiveness. It would never be forgiveness, but it was a beginning. They were perhaps the simplest to defeat. Their hive structure meant that once the queens were neutralized, the drones became confused and directionless. Human scientists developed a pheromone that could permanently disrupt the hive connection, turning aggressive drones into docile creatures that simply waited for orders that would never come. The threat of this weapon was enough. The queens surrendered unconditionally in the 10th year of the war. They agreed to abolish all slavery, release all captive species, and never again leave their home system without permission. The humans did not use the pheromone weapon. They kept it as a deterrent, a reminder of what could happen if they broke their promises. They had never been fully committed to the war against humanity. They had participated in the initial blockade and the Battle of the Heliopause, but they had not been involved in the decision to use the extinction lance. When the tide of the war turned, they quickly distanced themselves from the end. High Arbiter Oran, still alive after all these years, personally negotiated the surrender. He had never forgotten his conversation with Admiral during the Battle of the Heliopause. He had never forgotten the humans who saved his people even while fighting them. "We were wrong about your species," he admitted during the negotiations. "We saw you as primitives, as animals to be controlled. We did not understand what you truly were." The human negotiator, a woman named Sarah who had lost her parents on Earth, looked at him without emotion. And what are we truly, High Arbiter? Oran considered the question carefully. You are survivors, you are adapters, you are a species that cannot be destroyed because destruction only makes you stronger. And you are, he paused, searching for the right word. You are merciful even when mercy is not deserved. That is perhaps the most terrifying thing about you. They signed a peace treaty that made them allies of humanity, not subjects. They would retain their territory, their culture, their way of life, but they would never again participate in acts of aggression against other species. The who had remained neutral throughout the war immediately approached humanity with trade proposals. They had always valued profit over politics, and the new order in the galaxy offered endless opportunities for commerce. Human negotiators were skeptical at first. They had done nothing to stop Earth's destruction. They had stood by and watched while billions of people died. But humanity needed trading partners. They needed resources and technology and the connections that they could provide. So treaties were signed, trade routes were established, and they became humanity's first true economic partners in the galaxy. And then there were they had vanished from public life before the war even began. Their ancient ships had retreated to their mysterious, and no one had heard from them since. In the 11th year of the war, as the final treaties were being negotiated, and the galaxy was learning to live in peace, they returned. Their ambassador was old beyond imagining, a being who had lived for millions of years and seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. She appeared at the signing ceremony for the new Galactic Compact, the document that would establish the rules for the post-war galaxy. Everyone fell silent when she entered the chamber. Even the humans, who feared nothing anymore, felt a sense of awe in her presence. "We have been watching," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber like wind through ancient caves. "We have been watching since you first came to the stars, young humans. We have been watching to see what you would become." Admiral, now old and frail but still commanding, stepped forward. "And what have you seen, Ancient One?" They considered the question. "We have seen many young species rise and fall. Most burn brightly for a time and then fade into obscurity. Some become conquerors, ruling through fear until their empires collapse under their own weight. A few become wise, learning to live in harmony with the universe." She paused, looking at the assembled representatives of dozens of species. "You humans are different. You have done things that no other species has ever done. You stood against the Council when you had no hope of victory. You showed mercy to your enemies when every instinct demanded vengeance. You fought a war of extermination without becoming exterminators." The ancient being moved closer to Admiral. "When your world was destroyed, we expected you to become monsters. We expected you to burn the galaxy to ashes and salt the ground so nothing would ever grow again. That is what every other species would have done. That is what logic demanded." "But we did not," Admiral said quietly. "No, you did not. You destroyed your enemy's ability to wage war, but you did not destroy your enemies. You defeated them, but you did not annihilate them. You won, but you did not become what you defeated." The ambassador looked around the chamber once more. The old Galactic Council ruled through fear. They maintained power by crushing anyone who opposed them, but their rule was always fragile, always dependent on the threat of destruction. When you challenged them, when you showed that they could be defeated, their power crumbled. She turned back to Admiral. "You have a choice now. You can build a new order based on the same principles as the old: fear, domination, the strong ruling the weak. Or you can build something new, something that has never existed before. A galaxy where species work together not because they are afraid, but because they choose to." Admiral was silent for a long moment. She thought about everything she had seen and done. She thought about the rage that had consumed her after Earth's destruction. She thought about the temptation, so strong at times, to simply destroy everything and everyone who had hurt her people. And she thought about the young officer whose life crystal she had held during the Battle of the Heliopause. The moment when she had chosen mercy over vengeance, compassion over hatred. "We have already made our choice," she said finally. "We made it a long time ago, even if we did not realize it at the time. We are not conquerors. We are not destroyers. We are builders." She gestured to the document waiting to be signed. The new Galactic Compact establishes rights that have never existed before. No slavery, no extinction campaigns, no species classified as lesser or primitive. Every sapient being in the galaxy will be equal under the law, protected by the law, entitled to the same dignity and respect as every other. She picked up a pen, an ancient human tool that she had brought specifically for this moment. We could have demanded revenge. We could have demanded that every species that harmed us be punished forever. But punishment is not justice. Revenge is not peace. If we build a future on anger and hatred, that future will eventually collapse, just as the Council collapsed. She signed the document with a steady hand. So instead, we build a future on hope, on cooperation, on the belief that every species, no matter how they have behaved in the past, can learn and grow and become something better. She set down the pen and looked at the ambassador. "You asked what we would become. This is our answer. We are humanity. We remember our dead and we carry them with us. We remember the pain and we refuse to inflict it on others. We are the species that was nearly destroyed, and we have chosen to create rather than destroy." The signing ceremony continued. Representatives from 42 species added their names to the compact. The signed with enthusiasm, already calculating the profits of peace. The signed with relief, grateful to have survived their own arrogance. The reformed signed with something approaching humility, still repairing the damage to their collective. The humbled signed with resignation, knowing they would never again dominate anyone. And at the end, the ambassador rose once more. She walked to where Admiral sat, old and tired and finally at peace. "We waited to see what you would become," the ancient being said. "Conquerors or builders, destroyers or healers." She bowed, a gesture of respect that they had never granted to any other species in all the long history of the galaxy. "Now we know." Admiral smiled, the first genuine smile she had allowed herself in 11 years. "Welcome to the galaxy, humanity," the ambassador said. "We believe you have earned it." In the space where Earth once orbited the sun, humanity built a memorial. It was a hollow sphere, larger than any structure ever constructed. Inside, on walls that curved away in all directions, were inscribed the names of every person who had died when Earth was destroyed. 12 billion names, each one carved with precision and care. At the center of the sphere was a simple platform where visitors could stand and read the names. There were always visitors, humans who came to remember their families, aliens who came to understand what humanity had lost, children who came to learn history. The first anniversary of the compact's signing was held at the memorial. Representatives from every signatory species gathered inside the great sphere, surrounded by the names of the dead. Admiral gave the final address. She was 91 years old now, her hair white and her body frail, but her mind was still sharp and her voice still strong. 11 years ago, she began, I stood on the bridge of my flagship and watched the debris cloud that had been Earth expand through the solar system. In that moment, I wanted to destroy everything. I wanted to burn the galaxy until nothing was left but ash and memory. She paused, looking around at the assembled species. Many of you know what I did next. Many of you have called me the widow of Earth, the destroyer, the burning admiral. And it is true that I led humanity through a war of vengeance. I destroyed your fleets and shattered your empires. I made you pay for what you did to my world. She shook her head slowly. But that is not what I want to be remembered for. What I want to be remembered for is this moment, this gathering, this compact that we have all signed. She gestured at the names surrounding them. These 12 billion people died because the galaxy was ruled by fear. They died because the powerful believed they could do whatever they wanted to the weak. They died because no one had ever said enough. No more. Never again. Her voice grew stronger. We have said those words now. We have written them into law. We have built a new order based not on fear, but on cooperation. Not on domination, but on mutual respect. Not on the strong crushing the weak, but on all species working together for the common good. She smiled, and there was something peaceful in that smile, something that had been absent for 11 long years. The humans have a saying, from the ashes we rise. We were nearly destroyed. Ours was reduced to dust and debris. But we did not stay in the ashes. We rose, we fought, we won. And now, instead of ruling as conquerors, we extend our hand to all species and say, let us build something better together. She turned to face the ambassador, who stood among the other dignitaries. They asked us what we would become. We have answered that question not with words but with actions. We have shown that we are a species that remembers. We remember every kindness. We remember every cruelty. We remember our dead, and we carry them with us into every battle, every negotiation, every tomorrow. She looked around the memorial one final time, at the billions of names surrounding her. You burned our world, she said quietly. And in doing so, you taught the galaxy that humanity doesn't die. We adapt, we endure, we rise, and now we rebuild together, because that is also what we are. We are the species that extends a hand to our enemies and says, never again, now let's build something better. She stepped back from the podium. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then the ambassador rose. The ancient being, oldest in the galaxy, walked to where Admiral stood, and for the second time she bowed. You have earned our respect, they said. You have earned the respect of every species in this galaxy, not through conquest but through mercy, not through destruction but through creation, not through revenge but through hope. She straightened and looked at the assembly. 11 years ago, the galaxy executed humanity. They destroyed your world and murdered your people, believing that would be the end of your story. Her voice resonated through the memorial. They were wrong. That was not the end of your story. That was the beginning. The day they executed humanity was the day the galaxy began to burn. But from that burning has come not destruction but renewal, not death but life, not an ending but a beginning. She placed her ancient hand on Admiral's shoulder. The galaxy will remember this day. Long after the stars have grown old and cold, they will remember the species that was nearly destroyed and chose to save rather than condemn. They will remember that humanity had the power to rule through fear and chose, instead, to lead through hope. The ambassador stepped back. Welcome to the galaxy, humanity. You have taught us all what it means to truly be civilized. Admiral Yue lived for 3 more years after that ceremony. She spent them quietly, writing her memoirs and teaching at the academy that had been named in her honor. She visited the Earth Memorial often, reading the names and remembering the dead. On her last night, she sat in her garden on Mars, looking at the stars. A young officer, a woman who reminded her of herself at that age, sat beside her. Admiral, the young woman asked, do you have any regrets? Admiral considered the question. She thought about everything she had done, everything she had lost, everything she had built. I regret that it took such terrible suffering to teach the galaxy to be better, she said finally. I regret that 12 billion people had to die before the Council understood that their way was wrong. I regret that I had to become something dark and terrible before I could help create something bright and good. She paused, looking at the stars. But I do not regret the choices I made. I do not regret choosing mercy over vengeance, hope over despair, building over burning. Those choices cost me everything I had, but they gave my species something priceless, a future. The young officer was silent for a moment. What would you want people to remember about you? She asked. Admiral smiled. I would want them to remember that even in the darkest hour, even when everything seemed lost, humanity did not give up. I would want them to remember that we fought with everything we had but never forgot who we were. And I would want them to remember that when we won, we chose to extend our hand rather than close our fist. She closed her eyes. The galaxy thought they were executing a nuisance when they destroyed Earth. They were igniting a phoenix, and from the flames of that phoenix rose not a monster, but a species that would change everything. She died peacefully that night, surrounded by people who loved her. Her last words were inscribed on the Earth Memorial, beneath her own name. They thought they were executing a nuisance. They were igniting a phoenix. And in the centuries that followed, as humanity spread across the galaxy and built a civilization that would last for, those words became a reminder of what they had been, what they had become, and what they would always strive to be. Not conquerors, not destroyers, but builders, healers, humans, and the galaxy was better for it.